Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Femininja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. I have another fantastic guest with me today. She's going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which has to do with fitness over 50. Her name is Kelly Majdan, and she is an author, speaker, and wellness advisor who is passionate about helping midlife weekend warriors retain their health so they can continue to play. She is the best-selling author of the book titled Lessons from the Obstacle Course: Five Strategies to Conquer the Muddy Fields of Life. That's a great way of putting it. Following her own wellness strategy has enabled her and her husband, both over 50, to continue to participate in obstacle course races each year with their two children. Kelly, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to be here and spend this time with you. This is gonna be fun.
Well, it already has been fun
Yeah.
so far, and it's just about to get better. One of the things I did not include in your bio is that you also do love to play in the mud.
Yes. Well, that kind of, I guess that kind of comes along with the obstacle courses and the challenges that we do. So that's kind of, yeah, it's some of these courses are more muddy than others. And that's definitely helps add to the yuck factor and the push through and the what am I doing here? Why did I pay someone to go get muddy? I'm like, what? Like sanity sometimes is questionable. We'll just kind
Mhm,
of work with that one.
mhm. Yeah, I can understand that completely. So then what got you interested in obstacle courses? Because I found that fascinating. You look like such a girly girl, someone, I can relate to. And it was like, I don't know why I would ever want to get in the mud. But on the other hand, it sounds kind of liberating, almost like being a child again or being very childlike.
Yeah, I think there's a lot with that. Like it's kind of you're in Colorado. I grew up in Boulder, and I always joke around it's like I grew up swinging from trees because we lived in the foothills of Boulder,
Mm,
and so I've kind of always been an outdoorsy type of person, but kind of balanced it with what you had to do with corporate America and all that good stuff. But really, what got into obstacle course challenges happened to be the fact that in 2014, my husband, we found out he had something called a pineal gland cystic mass sitting in the middle of his
mhm,
brain. And it was all causing all sorts of havocs. And there's a whole story that goes kind of before that to get us to that point.
mhm,
But while he was going through his recovery, which was kind of elongated, my back went out on me,
mm,
and that elongated like my process of recovering. And so we were just kind of going through this trudgery. We were in our early 40s, had
mm,
young children, working really hard with corporate America and just trying to make all things go through, and kind of all of a sudden life kind of coming to, okay, is this it? Like, what are we
mhm,
doing here? We're not feeling great. And all this kind of stuff that happens in your early 40s when you're chasing corporate America and chasing little kids. And I had a couple friends from work who said, "Hey, Kelly, come join us on this race." And I've been doing like 5Ks and stuff like that. I did one marathon, check the box. I'm good. Not doing that ever
wow.
again. And training for that was hellacious. And my hat's down to people who do marathon training all the time. Like y'all are, you think I'm crazy? That's crazy. Anyway, but they're like, well, come do this race with us. It's called the Warrior Dash. And I'm like, oh, well, that sounds kind of fun. And they were all excited about it. So it kind of pulled me into it. And then I kind of stopped and said, oh, wait a minute. What's a Warrior Dash? Like, like, what did I just sign up for? And they said, oh, it's an obstacle course challenge with, and it's only, you only have to run 5 mile or 3 miles. It's a 5K. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like fun. Cause I just kind of, I don't know. I mean, Cheryl, I had needed something at that point in time. I don't know if anybody's like this as well. I just needed something to pull me out of the funk, like out of the
Mhm,
funk of, oh my gosh, we're getting older. We're running after kids. We're trying to recover, like all this stuff that was going on. And like I said, we had
mhm,
a few battles back and forth with my husband during his recovery period. I'm just like, I
mhm,
needed something,
mhm,
something to kind of get me back into life again. And
mhm,
this was in the early, it was 2014. So it was
mhm,
right when obstacle courses were starting to gain in popularity. Like people were starting to talk about the Spartan and the Tough Mudder and all those kind of
mm.
things. And so I was like, okay, I'm curious. Let's go play and let's go see what this is about. It was so much fun. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. Like, I mean, and it was muddy. Like, it was like seriously, like it's a mud pit. Like, you had to like actually dive into and go underneath barbed wire at the end in order to get your muddle. I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? But I mean, this picture I have of all of us when we got done, I mean, we're covered in mud. And my son was probably, let's see, he was 14. So he was just maybe 10 years old. And he's like, Mom, right here, put a big old, like, so he's giving me his shoulder. He's like, just slap me on there with this mud. Like, I want to show that I was participating. And so like, he's all excited about it. And he's in the picture with my daughter in the picture with all of us covered in mud.
Mhm.
And of course, my husband couldn't participate because he was still recovering from brain surgery because it happened to be a few months after his surgery that we did this. And it just got him ignited as well too,
Uh-huh.
because he's a Marine.
Ah.
So in order to get, for him to really get back into recovering from his brain surgery and the
Mhm.
setbacks that we had, he needed something
Mhm.
to reach for. And
Mhm.
again, we're in our early 40s at the time, or mid 40s. And it was like life was just trudgy and
Mhm.
it was just, ugh. So that just kind of that's what got us going into the obstacle
Mhm.
courses, was just something to really strive for and reach for, that was something different than what we were doing.
Okay, so let me ask you this. The first one that you did was with your 2 children?
No, actually, it wasn't. It was
Oh,
with the group of friends from work.
okay.
They just happened to all, because Frank couldn't do it. And so he and the kids, but though, piled in and went to this muddy field with us and waited for us. So they were there at the end, in the
Mhm.
beginning, obviously. And that's what kind of, they were seeing everything. And then Will Warrior Dash, they no longer do, unfortunately. It was just kind of sad because it was a lot of fun. It was a
Mhm.
great introductory race for people to do the obstacle courses because it was pretty simple. It wasn't too
Mhm.
bad, but it was just really muddy.
Okay, so then I have to ask you this. What did your children think even before? I mean, when you told them what you were gonna do? I mean, I couldn't imagine, what their reactions might be.
I think nobody really knew what to expect. Like, because
Mhm.
again, obstacle courses were just starting to gain in
Mhm.
popularity, and our kids were probably 10 and 8 at the time. So
Mhm.
they, really didn't have a lot of life experience to really maybe understand, but they'd seen,
Mhm.
we had done a lot of 5Ks and 10Ks. And like I said,
Mhm.
that one marathon, and they were with the grandparents kind of tracing us as we did the one
Mhm.
marathon race. So they've been with us on the sidelines of
Mhm.
doing all these little races. So I think this was just one they're like, well, that looks like a lot more fun than the running thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just can picture them both going to school the next day, telling, all of their friends and their teachers that my mom was rolling around in the mud this weekend.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. It was, yep.
That's a pretty cool mom.
Yeah. I like to be a cool mom. I like that title. I could take that one on.
Mhm. Well, actually, what did I write down here? It's like, oh yeah, finding your inner warrior in the mud.
Yeah. And there is a lot with that. And that's kind of what I talked a little bit about, and what really helped me, uh, part of what I talk about in the book, but it was part of what drew me to do that, was the fact that there's so many lessons that I've learned on these
Mhm.
courses over the
Mhm.
years. So now we've been doing them
Mhm.
for over 10 years, or I guess it'll be 10 years this year. And we do about 3 to 5, depending on what our schedules are and what we can fit in. And there's just so much growth that
Mhm.
I have had personally by facing some of the challenges that we do. And there are some challenges that I have, it's taken me a few obstacles to get through. Like this last October, we finally did a Spartan trifecta, which means you did like 3 races over the course of 2 days. And by the second time, because you hit this one obstacle each time, and I've
Mhm.
never been able to really push myself over it. My husband always kind of shoved my butt over it. And finally, I got to the point where I'm like, I'm just going to get over this dang thing. And I finally just figured out how to swing my body, and that getting over that fear,
Uh-huh.
that has just been so helpful in
Mhm.
my personal life. And I'm in sales, and so sometimes you have a lot of fear as you're
Mhm.
working through, and like, oh, I'm just going to call and ask that person, or I'm just going to ask this question. I'm like, it never hurts. Like,
Mhm.
it just helps push you through. And I think there's been so many of those little fun lessons that I've learned on the course that's pushed me to try more things in my own personal life.
Mhm. It sounds to me that it was very empowering.
Yes,
One of
very
my
much.
favorite words that I use a lot.
Very much, very much so. So it's and it continues to be so, and it's going to be, and it will be. I keep looking at these different races. Like I told my husband the other day, I'm like, okay, well, we now need to do an ultra. We now need to do this. And he just looks at me like, okay. I mean, bless his heart. He's just ready to go along with it. But, and there's a good reason for that as well, too, because I mean, not just the Marine side of him. However, what we thought was the mass that was sitting in his brain, which was causing problems. It really wasn't the main issue of what was going on. He has something it's a neuromuscular autoimmune issue called Lambert-Eaton myasthenic syndrome, which we just found out last couple of years. And basically it takes a while for his muscles to fire up. So if you think of it from this perspective, so you're going to do arm curls, you're going to do bicep curls, right? And you're going to do a pretty heavy weight that's going to be challenging. Your first set of 10, you're like, okay, no problem, I got this. Second set, you're like, oh, okay, this is a little harder. Then the third set, you're like, okay, we'll flip it. His first set is hard because his muscles are taking some time to get to know, like, oh, I'm supposed to be working now. And then the second set, it's like, okay, it's getting a little easier. And the third set, he's like, I got this. I could do this all day. So that's the kind of condition that he has. And so if we don't keep him moving, he will end up in a wheelchair because it's under the MS category. So there's another point in another kind of method to the madness, so to speak, as to why these will forever be a part of our life.
Well, it sounds like a really good, I don't want to say addiction, but it sounds like a very good habit, let's just
You
say,
can
or
have healthy addictions. Healthy addictions
yeah,
are okay.
yeah.
That's kind of, there's some good things there.
Well, and there's so much more to it because it's not just keeping yourselves healthy and active, which is
Yep.
really very important, especially once you get to a certain age.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's just it's a family affair, and it's not only just your entire family is participating; it's the social interaction with other people. You know, that's why I'm a dancer. I've danced since I got a late start. I started doing ballet when I was 19, and I still do it all these years later because there is nothing more invigorating and satisfying than sharing a passion with other people who have the same passion as you do, and cheering each other on. We don't do that as much in ballet, but another dance form that I won't talk
Right.
about right now, we do. But yeah, it's just having that camaraderie and that sense of that social interaction that really makes a huge difference in your not only your physical but your emotional and mental health as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a fun thing, I think, too, about a lot of these courses and a lot of, and in any kind of running events, but I think more so on the obstacle courses, because you do run into, there's never been an obstacle. There's only been one time in all these obstacles that I've gone through where you didn't get help from another participant in the
Mm.
race.
Mhm.
And and you meet some really fascinating people, and you and I were talking about health beforehand, and then fitness over 50. I think that's part of a big thing as well too. And I remember, you strike up these conversations, which I do all the time when I'm on the course, and I struck up this conversation with this older gentleman, and I asked him, I'm like, somehow we got on the topic of age. And
Mhm.
he shared with me that he was 73. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. I was like, well, wait, how long have you been doing obstacle course races? And he said 4 years. So do the math.
Mhm.
That's 69. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What got you started? And I love this. And I hope people hear this really, really well, because he goes, I went to my doctor and he said I was pre-diabetic. And he said, if
Mm.
I don't lose weight, then I will be on medicine for the rest of my life. And he said, and I love this about him. He said, and I have no idea who he is. So stranger who I met, you're like awesome. He said that he goes, I did not want that to be the course of my life.
Mhm.
So I decided I had to do something about it. And for him, and I'm saying obstacles are for everyone, but for him, his choice was, I want to compete.
Mhm.
I want to do I want to do an obstacle course. I want to do a Spartan. And we happen to be doing the Spartan Beast, which was the 13 miles and
Mhm.
35 obstacles. And
Mhm.
so just that story of inspiration on that front, that he
Mhm.
decided, I'm going to take my health in my own hands. I've gotten to this
Mhm.
point, and it didn't matter his age. He started at 69. Like,
Mhm.
seriously, like, you can I run into this all the time with women, especially women. I'm like, gosh, ladies, stop this. Oh,
Mhm.
I'm too old. No, no, you're not. Like, get your butt out there. If you want to do it, go do it. There's nothing stopping you except for you.
Unfortunately, that's the message that we keep receiving from other people. If it's society, the media, friends, family, even like the healthcare professionals, and I can say that
Don't get
because
me
I
started.
am one of them. I know,
Yeah.
but it's like they know better than us. It's like, well, you can't do this. You're going to get hurt. You're too old. I was a chronic pain patient for 2.5 years when I was in my mid 30s. And I was a respiratory therapist at the time. And so I was Western medicine trained
Yeah.
and I did everything I was supposed to. I went to all the doctor's appointments. I took the medication. I did the really stupid stretches and exercises the PTs gave me. And I can say that because I'm a PT now. And, I did everything. I was a good patient. And
Right.
I lived that life for 2.5 years and I kept getting worse and worse and worse until 2.5 years in, one of my doctors told me that I would never be able to do my grocery shopping and my laundry all in the same day because the
Mm.
arthritis in my spine was so severe, I would end up being bedridden. And then she told me to start applying for disability because I was going to need it. And I looked at her, I says, I'm planning on going back to ballet class. And she laughed in my face.
Yeah.
And, that was a really good wake up call for me because, again, it was another mental head smacking moment. I went home, I hit rock bottom. And then a few days later, it was like, wait a minute, this is on you. You
Yeah.
need to figure this out for yourself. Not only are they not making you better, they're making you worse and they're keeping you in this horrible pain spasm cycle. So, just for those listeners, who might be experiencing some pain, do not let people put labels on you. Do not let people tell you that you're too old. You are not too old for anything.
Absolutely.
You
Here,
can
I
do
hear you.
anything at any age. I told you before we started recording, I interviewed a charming gentleman and I was on his show, John A. Brink. Listeners, look him up. He is an 84-year-old bodybuilder.
I love
And
that.
he got started, Kelly, when he was in his 60s, I think mid to late 60s, when he had a medical, crisis.
Right.
And again, it was like, I got to do something.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was that I think, and it's you would love to sit there and say that it doesn't take a crisis to kick us in the butt to get going.
Mhm,
But I mean, it unfortunately for most of us, it does. For
mhm,
me, it was my lower back. It had gone out when I was pregnant with my daughter at age 35. And then when I was taking care of my husband, it went out again. I mean, I couldn't I could not bend over to tie my shoes because I wouldn't
mhm,
be able to get back up. So I would have to
mhm.
sit on the ground, pull my leg up and tie my shoes and then crawl my way up. And I'm like, I was 42 or 43 at the time. I'm like, I can't live the rest of my life like this. This is crazy. Now,
Mhm,
so I still have obviously degenerating disc in my lower back and arthritis in my hip, but I've learned over time, okay, this is how I take care of it. And for most
mhm,
days, I feel fantastic. Are
mhm,
there days where I'm like, oh, did a little too much?
mhm,
We're going to kind of relax and sit on the couch for a while, put a
mhm,
little heating pad. Good.
mhm.
But it's that self care and knowing that, and the doctors were looking at me like, well, you're going to end up with surgery. So you should just be taken care of. I'm like, no, no, that's not going to happen for me. I'm like, no, I'm not. I absolutely refuse to go down that route. Now,
Mhm,
you have to kind of balance it because there might be some times where you might, but there's so much you can do before
mhm,
you have to walk down that road that it's
mhm,
so worth exploring everything first
mhm.
before you actually put yourself under the knife. Because what is it, the stats on that one? I think that like once you have back surgery once, you're like almost it's over 50% likely that you're going to end up having it again.
It is a very rare situation that you have a back surgery. I remember working as a new physical therapist in a rehab center, and I worked with people who were on like surgery 6, 7. I mean, it was heartbreaking. One woman, and this was so long ago. This was back in 1996, but I remember it so clearly. She had a brace, from the neck all the way down to her
Oh my
pelvis
gosh.
to
Yeah.
mobilize her after, and she was in constant pain. And I thought, but for the grace of God, there go I, because if I had kept listening to the medical experts, maybe that could have been me. I don't know. But I'm glad you brought up the self-care. But along with the self-care, what you were describing was an incredible self-awareness and the
Yes.
ability to listen to your body and the signals that your body is sending you, the messages. I always tell people that pain is a powerful teacher. Pain is not necessarily a bad thing because it gets our attention. We have to pay attention to it. What are we doing, in our lives? How are we moving our bodies? What's going
Mhm.
on? It brings you to a level of really deep understanding and self-exploration, which I think is a really good thing. Because then when you do need medical intervention, you know your body, you know yourself, and you go into that appointment with the knowledge that you can share with the physician because they don't have a whole lot of time to spend with you. We all know that.
No, absolutely. And and the whole thing too is I always tell people to be your own health detective,
Hmm.
be intentional with your health. And it's not, I mean, and I know we talk about it's a sick care system, not a health care system. And but what you just touched on is that these unfortunately there are so many doctors that just don't have enough time.
Hmm.
So it's really empowering and it's important for you to do your research and really
Hmm.
understand what is really going on and be very aware of your body and be willing, like listen to your gut and your intuition. If the doctor is sitting there telling you something, you're like, well, like we kept pushing it with my husband, and there's lots with that unfortunately sometimes you have to be the advocate for other people as well.
Hmm.
And we would not know what he has and what we're truly dealing with had we not sat there and
Hmm.
continued to say, okay, this is not right,
Hmm.
let's continue to look, let's continue to kind of pull through this. And sometimes it takes us, you did the same thing with your back
Hmm.
for over 2 years, you're like, okay, this is not right. So it's
Hmm.
okay, I think we get to do, and I don't know whether this is just the way that we were all brought up, that you're not supposed to question doctors. And I'm like, you know what? They're just human beings. Yes, they have a
Hmm.
little more, a lot more education, obviously, in certain areas, but there are also a lot of doctors that are just focused on one area
Hmm.
and they're not looking at the whole body.
Hmm.
And again, that's a lot to look in. So it's not to say that they're bad people or anything like that. It's to say that they need your help in order for you to be your best advocate for yourself and to find the best healing that you can have for yourself.
Yes, it's a team effort. And
Yes.
actually, the practitioners that I use, if I ever do go to the doctor, it's very rare, but the ones that I do have, on standby just in case, when I go in there, we're working as a team and it's like, this is what's happening. This is what I think it is, but I'm not sure. And because it's my heart, I just came in wanting you to check and make sure,
Right.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they appreciate that. Of course, if you go to a physician who does not appreciate that, then
Go
maybe you
find
need
another
to.
one.
There you go. There's plenty of them out there, and so you can make
Yep.
that choice. But that also comes back to the alternative healthcare. Like you said, there are a lot of different things that we can try. Um, when I and when I went through my back injury, I was 36 at the time, and of course, told by everybody how old I was. I was way too old. When I told my doctor I wanted to go back to ballet class, and she laughed in my face and says, "You're just way too old. Even if you could do it, you can't." And here I am. I'm 67, and I'm still dancing.
Yeah, no, I mean I think that's the limiting that we talked about earlier. It's
Uh-huh.
that limiting belief that people put on themselves,
Mhm.
or they allow people because they want the
Right.
excuse. Like there's, and this is when I just, gosh, it breaks my heart from this perspective as well too, because I think it's these excuses that we give ourselves
Mhm.
sometimes because we're either scared,
Mhm.
or we've given up on ourselves, or
Mhm.
honestly it's, I really just don't want to do that. Like
Mhm.
a great example is so we are a little adventurous, and I had a 50 pandemic birthday, but we were thankfully in Texas, and it was late enough in the year that I could go. I've always wanted to jump out of an airplane, and my husband is jump certified and all that kind of stuff from the Marine Corps. So I'm like, okay, it sounds like so much fun. I want to try this once, but I'm going to have to be attached to somebody because there's no way I'm jumping out physically. Like somebody's going to have to push me out. So, we did it though. So we jumped out and it was so much fun. And like I just sat there and he's like, do you want to swirl? I'm like, no, I just want to float. Oh, I enjoyed it. And then before he got to a point, he's like, we kind of need to go. I'm like, okay, darn it, let's go. But anyway, so my daughter she wanted to do that for her 18th birthday. And so great. We're in it. We ended up, it was too cloudy. We can go. So we still have our tickets to do it. However, I was explaining this to a couple of our lacrosse moms, and one of them, she's such a sweet lady. And she's like, she goes, I'm just too old for that. Maybe when I was younger, I would do it. And I'm just sitting here going, okay,
Oh,
there's two things going on here. One, it's a lie, because there's
mhm.
a lie on one, two, and I know this is going to be very blunt, and you're going to be like, some listeners are going to be like, okay, wait a minute. I'm like, no, I'm going to be blunt here. It's a lie. And there's one of two lies you're going down. One is that you're used to think I'm just bat crap crazy, and you're like, I'm never going to be doing this. And so,
Mhm.
but you don't want to be like, oh my gosh, that's not something I would do, because you don't want to look bad. But
Mhm.
I'm totally okay if somebody tells me that I'm bat crap crazy, and like, it's not something I'm going to do.
Actually,
Like,
that's Kelly, that's a badge of honor, right?
yeah, exactly. So I'm like, I'm totally okay, because not everybody's going to do things. Like, there's lots of things I'm not going to do that I think somebody else is bat crap crazy. But or it's but most likely it's this lie that we're telling ourselves.
Mhm.
It's the because she said, oh, and when I was younger, I would have done it, but I'm too old for that now. Ladies, stop it. If it's something you want to do not sit there and tell yourself that you're too old to do it.
Mhm.
Because if you really wanted to do it, you can do it. Like, there's
Mhm.
really truly the only person stopping you is you for the most part.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
So
whether it's
I
anyway,
think
yeah,
because
but that's the
well,
thing.
I think because someday you and I are going to be ruling the world. I just kind of feel that in my gut. I know that's going to happen. That I think what we need to do is kind of like make that, remove that phrase from the English language or our
Yes,
vocabulary. I'm too old. That needs to go.
that needs to go. Bye bye.
Yeah, that's a dirty, dirty phrase.
Yes. Oh, you get me on my soapbox. You tell me that I'm on my soapbox.
Mhm. Well, I
Like,
wrote a book about it, so
yeah,
did you.
exactly.
So, right? We obviously are very passionate about this, but it does. I mean, it really breaks my heart. And just think about what you're doing. If somebody tells you you're too old to do something, and if you accept that, you are actually giving away your personal power and giving
Yep.
it to somebody else. It's the same thing as walking
Yep.
into a doctor's office and not having done your own research, taking your own notes about your body or what, your concerns are, or what you've discovered. You walk in there cold, you just handed over your personal authority to somebody who does not have the kind of interest in your well-being as you do yourself.
Right. Exactly. Very, very true. I mean, and that is that. And there's a lot that you can unpack there. And there's probably a lot of reasons that people do
Mhm,
and say those words.
mhm,
But I think in the long term is in the biggest thing though that we have to, I think as a society, especially as we are aging and spending more
mhm,
time on this earth, is taking more ownership
mhm,
of our lives
mhm,
and really saying that, not giving up on ourselves. Because I think that's really the big thing. It's either
mhm,
you want the excuse or you
mhm,
want the reason not to do something,
mhm,
or there is something else going on and you're stopping yourself. So
mhm,
either way, just come to that truth and figure
mhm,
out what it is, and then you know the path forward that you need to
mhm.
take.
And it's okay if you don't want to.
Right.
It's okay, but that's your choice.
That,
And
just know
with
it's your choice and own it.
and not only that, understand there are consequences. There are consequences
Right.
for everything. I mean, there
Yep.
would be consequences for me if I tried to jump out of an airplane. I would probably just wet my pants before I even got to the bottom. But
They
you
have things for
there's
that.
you're right. But there are consequences, and ignoring your health or trying to make excuses, and you don't have to do a tough mudder. You don't have to
Yeah.
do an obstacle course. You don't have to do martial arts or go to ballet class. Do something. And I think personally, the key to being able to, you know, do something physical on a regular basis is to pick something you love and enjoy.
Yes.
I am allergic to running, and the thought of going to a gym makes me, break out in hives.
Right.
I am a physical therapist who hates exercise and thinks that chocolate is food because it is. But I love to move, and I have found things that really make my heart and my soul sing.
Yeah.
I'd love to try crawling in the mud because I think that actually would be a nice little
Oh, come with me. I'll take you on the course with me. It would be so much fun.
Oh my God.
But you know, you're very right. I was sitting down with a lady the other day and she was like, she goes, well, will Pilates do? I'm like, anything will do
Yes.
that you will get out and move your
Hmm.
body. Y'all, we sit too much. We're too sedentary, and our bodies are not meant to be sedentary. That's not
Hmm.
how we were made. We were
Hmm.
made to move, and we were made to move on a regular basis. That's part of the
Hmm.
reason why I think the stat is now that we have over 60% of people who have some sort of chronic illness, when back in the 60s, we only had 6%. I mean, it's ridiculous. We should not be in this state, but we have created this lack of movement or no movement. And then you
Hmm.
see it going on with children. And that's why I think it's,
Hmm.
with the video games and all that kind of, I mean, that's one thing we thankfully, we really limited our kids in that respect, but we also encourage sports of
Hmm.
some sort. So our kids played sports all the time. And then of course they come out on the course with us now because they're just as crazy as we are. So, but I'm like, but it doesn't have to be sports. It can be
Right.
walking. It can be golf. It can be pickleball. Like my daughter goes and plays pickleball with all of her friends and she's got so much fun with that now. And I love
Hmm.
it. I think it's great. So it just move your body, even if it's just walking. Walking
Hmm.
is so cathartic. Is that the right word? Cathartic for your
Hmm.
soul and
Hmm.
for your body and for your eyes. Get
Hmm.
it. Don't walk with your head down here looking at your phone. Girls, get your head up.
Thank
And
you.
yes, I mean this becomes like a 30-pound weight on your neck, and
Mhm.
you're not exercising your eyes by looking out and exploring and just taking in. Like if even if you just walk on a daily basis,
Mhm.
that's something. Like just do something.
So I'm going to add a little public
Yes.
service announcement to
Yeah.
that too, because cell phones are like that's the one. It's a trigger for me. I go crazy because it breaks my heart to see women walking around with their face in their phone and not paying attention to the people around them.
Oh yeah. Situational awareness.
Situational awareness is huge. And you know what? If you're doing it and if you have children, your children are going to do it too. They're like little sponges and they mimic
Hmm.
everything that the adults do. That is so dangerous and so frightening that
Oh,
you
it's
have
yep.
no idea. You have no idea who's watching you. And trust me,
They're watching.
yes, they
Yes.
are. And
Yep.
predators are looking for an easy target.
Oh, absolutely. Don't be an easy target. Do
Yep.
not be an easy target. Yes,
Yep.
I know. I hear you 100%. That's my I do a lot of traveling around for
Mm.
work, and my husband is, believe me, I'm very well armed and well aware.
I love that. Well, hey, you got to be able to take care of yourself. Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you know what? And I have two precious kids. They're not babies anymore, but I have a great life to come home to. And believe me, I am coming home.
Hmm. That's the whole philosophy behind the art that I study. It's the art of the
Hmm.
ninja and the samurai. Basically, it's an ancient Japanese martial art called Nimpo Taijutsu. And, everybody's like, oh, can you take someone down? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it's like, it's not about being able to do that. The answer would be yes. But that's not what it's about. It's about going home at the end of the day.
Yep.
It's about helping to keep myself safe, your family safe, your friends, your community, and, just being a peacemaker, having a compassionate heart. And we don't want to fight, but
No,
don't push it.
exactly. Yeah. Don't, yeah, but we won't be a victim either.
Exactly. Right. See, I
Yeah.
told you we're going to be running the world someday.
I love it.
I know. I'm probably going to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with images of me playing in the mud. So I'll let you know.
Please, please do. There's a few up in Colorado. I can't get to them this year, but next year.
I think there is like a Tough Mudder or something in Fort Collins. One of my
Yep.
guests lives up there in Fort Collins. He had his wake up moment when he was 39 and
Hmm.
had a heart attack in front of his 6-year-old daughter.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, turned out
Yeah.
okay. He's fine. He looks really buff. She's fine. They do, Tough Mudders and stuff together. So it turned out pretty well. But that's the scary thing is we
Oh
have
yeah.
to really be on top of our health and our wellness, our fitness, and what our goals and our dreams truly are.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you, there is nothing cuter than seeing a dad and their daughter out on the
Oh,
course. Because our daughters obviously come out with us, but there's been several times where I've seen a father with his daughter out there, and
uh-huh.
I just think that is just the most precious thing ever. And I stopped and talked to this one guy, and he said, he goes, "That's my life right there." I mean,
Oh,
it was just the sweetest thing. But she was running circles around him. She's like, "Come on, Dad," and she had to be maybe I mean it was a Spartan, so she had to be about 15. But anyway,
wow.
I just think that when you go and you do those things with your kids and you go
Mhm,
through those trials, like
mhm,
it's so important that they see you struggle and work through it, but
mhm,
it's so important that they see you continue pushing forward
mhm,
and doing it. So, or whatever it is, whether it's something on the
mhm,
course or whether it's something off the course, some you just
mhm.
bringing your kids along in the journey. Maybe they don't have to know everything, but I think you and I grew up in a time where our parents kind of kept everything siloed and kept
Mhm,
everything from us.
mhm,
That I really do appreciate that a little bit of the change in the generation thought process. Our kids, they know enough, but they know enough to be a little bit more prepared for the world. And that's part of our job as
right.
parents, is making sure they're prepared for the world, and seeing some of those struggles and working through that is part of that.
Mhm. We have, at the dojo right now, a new family started, training. There was a little boy, and, his dad would, take him to the dojo, and then the mom took him a couple of times, and she's 45, I think, and she started, like, thinking about, "Hey, this looks like something that maybe I could do, but I don't know," and so then she decided she wanted to try the adult class and dragged her husband with her so she wouldn't be by herself. And now she's only been there, maybe just under 2 months, and she's already gotten her first yellow belt and stuff, and so now they're turning it into a family affair because, the husband and the mom, the dad and the mom and the little boy, and she has a 2-year-old daughter.
Mm.
So the 2-year-old comes and watches some of the classes, and she says she can count to 10 in Japanese already.
Oh, that's wonderful. I
And
love
she's
it.
not even taking
Yeah.
classes, but, and she's actually watching them roll and stuff and pointing things out,
Yeah.
and she does her little katate chumonji no kamae. It's just adorable.
Oh, it is. It is. I mean, I think there's something so neat, especially because you end up spending so much time and effort in some of these areas, that it's kind of like, well, if you can't fight them, join them, in a way,
Yeah,
that
right?
you might as well, and then
Yeah.
just enjoy the process. And there is something that would be I would love to do that. I've not yet, and my husband would love to do Krav Maga. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about that
Ooh,
one. But
yeah.
anyway, that's kind of on our next list of things to try as we become empty nesters here and have a little bit
Mhm,
more time to ourselves, because usually we're
mhm,
traveling for lacrosse and all that stuff.
mhm,
But it's so fun though to be part of all of that and have that whole family unit.
mhm,
There's those are memories like that we have on the courses
mhm.
that you will have forever.
Mhm. Yeah, my dad was a skier. He didn't start skiing until he was probably about 40. And then he fell in love with it and taught us to ski, but he got really good really fast so he could join the ski patrol and then his family could ski
Hmm.
for free.
Oh, there you go. That's
Yeah.
perfect. Good idea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was always thinking. And this is back in Pennsylvania. The skiing conditions, oh, trust me, are not what they are here in Colorado. But
No, you're not ice skiing.
yeah, yeah, right. And that's exactly my youngest sister, who actually was on the Penn State ski team, called it bulletproof ice.
Mm.
And that's basically what you are skiing on. But we had my mom hated the cold, hated, she tried it once with her one of her girlfriends on a ski trip, and it was hilarious, but she was done. She was the one sitting by the fire with the wine. And we had so many really fun memories of that. And then of course after I moved to Colorado, my dad would come out in the winters and we'd do ski trips together, and we had some of the greatest times, wonderful memories. I mean, I cherish those really.
Yeah. It's just making time with your family and being intentional
Mhm.
again and doing something health wise that
Mhm.
just continues on.
Mhm, exactly. So now, when did you decide that it was time to write a book? What was the trigger, or what was the one thing that, or did you wake up one morning and say, you know what, I think I would like to reach more people? And I think it sounds like writing a book sounds like a lot of fun.
What's so funny is that I absolutely hate writing. So, So I will tell people out there, if you've thought about it and you hate writing, there is hope. So, I had a friend of mine who wrote a book, and I always thought, oh, that'd be kind of interesting, but I never knew, like, oh, would I write a book about? Well, I don't know when I'm going to do this. And I happened to be telling this friend about a story that I had learned from the obstacle course about this one obstacle that had just haunted me for several courses. And I finally got over it. And the reason why I got over it was the fact that I had to get my daughter over it. And I was telling
Ah,
her that story, and she's like, you got to write a book about this. And so I'm like, oh, I kind of nod on that for a little bit. And then I said, all right, well, I guess I'll do that. I'll start. So I kind of put the outline together, because I joined
mhm.
whatever group, and I was like, you know what, there's actually something here. And the pandemic hit. So I had a little more time on my hands.
There you go.
But it was such a I'm so glad I did it. It was such a fun process to go through and actually connect some of the dots.
Mhm,
And it was really, I relearned. I know that sounds really strange, but by going
mhm,
through these lessons and
mhm,
telling the story of them, there's so much that I gained personally. So it's kind of more for me, and then, but also for, I hope, to help other folks, because what I did at the end
mhm,
of each chapter was I teach the lesson. I say, here's the lessons from the lesson, basically.
mhm,
And then I leave with some questions that I
mhm,
hope they'll dig further,
mhm,
and maybe work through some obstacles in their own life.
mhm,
So that was like, because I still want to teach and help and coach. And so
mhm.
kind of all that kind of came together. But it took me a while to get it out there because of my dislike of writing. But anyway, so
Okay, so there's another life lesson in there that even if you hate something, doesn't mean you can't do it.
yeah, exactly. You just have
Okay.
to push forward. It just might take you a little bit longer to do it.
Yeah.
And but yeah, but it's so worth it in that respect. And I've had some really great feedback from it. And
Mhm,
I always sit there and think, like, if I can help one person, then it was worth
mhm,
all of the effort that I went through. So
mhm.
that's hopefully from that perspective.
The agony of writing. So,
Yeah.
at this point, I never quite understood why writers and authors would go crazy. I understand it now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really do. It's like what makes perfect sense to me. So what I really loved about the book was the way you have the 5 strategies and the way that they're listed out.
Hmm.
I mean, this is a very practical guide.
Oh, thank you.
And it just seemed like, yeah, it seemed like it's a great how-to
Hmm.
and a wonderful guide. So how do you tie that in with your work as a coach?
So the five strategies I talk about are recovery, discovery, persistency, creativity, and collaboration. And if you
Mhm,
think through, we hit each one of those throughout our life. Maybe
mhm,
not necessarily in the same order, but you
mhm,
definitely do go through them, and you kind of cycle back through them. And I know somebody asked me one time, well, why'd you start with recovery? I'm like, well, because a lot of times we are recovering from something. And our journey on the obstacle course
mhm,
really was my husband's recovery from brain surgery, and what got
mhm,
him to go. It's that carrot that's out there that we need, but it's also recognizing that sometimes you do need to take the time to
mhm,
recover. And you, especially like when we're doing these obstacle courses, the week before the obstacle course is a recovery week. Like, I don't push it hard, because
mhm,
I know that I
mhm,
want to give my body that time to really kind of be set and be ready so that I can
mhm,
perform the best. And I actually recover so much faster afterwards.
mhm,
And there's lots of studies on that front. But then there's also
mhm,
those mental recoveries and everything else that goes along with it. But each strategy, you have something in life. And I think the most one, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, was the last one is collaboration. And that is the one thing I like, the big thing for writing the book too, was the fact that I just like, why can't we all kind of face life like we do these obstacle courses? And what I mean
mhm,
by that is that when we get in that starting pen, whether it be a 5K or any kind of race, you have this excitement, and it's going to be challenging, and you're going to run into a few obstacles, but you take on the obstacles with this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to give it my heart, my best. And if I can do it, great. If I can't, well, I'll do my penalty lap, or I'll do my burpees, and then I will
mhm,
just continue on. I'll be okay with that.
mhm,
We don't face that in life. Like, we sit there and we think, oh, crap, or oh, this is horrible, or oh, what, just those really negative feelings, instead of like, okay, we can do this. And the collaboration part of it is the fact that we do need each other on. And I think the pandemic has probably showed us a lot of that. But when you get out
mhm,
on these courses, everybody is your friend. It
Mhm.
honestly, like I said, there's only been one obstacle where and they were young kids, college age boys, and I wanted to go tell their mom that they were bad people. But but other than that, everybody on these courses, they're there to help. They pitch in. You make immediate friends.
Mhm.
Everybody is there to get over the obstacle. And like I've had a guy who, like, I was stuck and I needed like just 1 foot up,
Mhm.
and I figured out later he was running his penalty a lot, but he's like, "Do you need some help?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just need leverage." And he gave me the foothold that I needed to get up, and then he ran his penalty lap and he took off. And I realized he's trying to do this for time because he was by himself, but yet he stopped
Oh,
and
wow.
gave me a leg up. And so
Wow.
that's that mentality that's on these courses that I just think, gosh, why can't we do that in life? Why can't we be more like that in life?
Mhm. And I just wrote that down. That's a blueprint for life
Yeah.
or a path or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, a formula. Yeah, why can't we do that? Because everybody's telling us that we need to hate each other.
And I just don't, I honestly, I just don't get that. I'm like, we all have our differences. Yeah. But at
Yeah.
the end, but I hate that thing. At the end of the day, when it comes down to it,
Mhm.
we're all just trying to get through this life. I'm like,
Mhm.
and we all have struggles. Like,
Mhm.
stop and smile at the person at the grocery
Mhm.
store. Like, you never
Mhm.
know what is going on in their day.
Mhm.
You wave a hand. I always wave to my neighbors. My husband's like, "Do you know them?" I'm like, "No, I had no idea, but I'm waving
Yep.
anyway." Like, just hold the door open for somebody.
Yeah.
Wait, don't let it slam in their face. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know. Honestly, you have no idea what a simple smile can do for someone
Mhm.
for that day and what it can do for you. Like,
Mhm.
just being happy and laugh actually can add years to your life. And when
Mhm.
you're going through life happier, people around you go through life happier and you're healthier in that respect too. So
Yeah.
there's so much about that I especially in this day and age, I just wish people would gravitate to
Right.
instead of
I
going the
know.
opposite direction.
And it's better for your complexion,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and that's really important.
Yeah. You should just it takes less. It takes less to frown than just to smile. I get
No,
that
there
wrong.
are, yeah, less muscles to smile than it does to frown. But it reminds me of a
Right.
story from Abraham Lincoln. He had, I guess, his advisors were trying to get him to add this gentleman to his cabinet, and the president said no, he didn't want him because he didn't like his face.
Hmm.
And the guys in his cabinet were like, well, you can't, blame somebody for their face or hold them responsible. And he said, by the time you hit the age of 40, you are responsible for your face. Because he
Mm.
says, he looked bitter, he looked angry, he looked distrustful, all because of, the expressions and the shapes and the lines on your face.
Well, I've never heard that before, but I totally agree.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Yep. So ladies, we want to look good. So smile and be nice to people, even when they're
Yes.
mean.
Exactly. Exactly. It does you good. It does the heart good.
Hmm. Okay, so where can people find you, Kelly? How can they get a hold of you? Give us, some of the links or whatever. Of course, they're in the show notes, but I just really like for my guests to be able to articulate it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Really easy. KellyMajdan.com is my website. It's Majdan and Kelly with a Y. And then you can follow on Instagram and Facebook, Power Through Wellness. That's the name of our company. So,
Mhm. Excellent. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been so much fun, and I really am looking forward to the day that we are running the world.
yes, that'd be awesome.
It'll
It'll be a great world.
it'll be a
Thank you
much
so
better
much for having
place.
me.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Please share this episode with everybody you know, especially if they're over 40 and they think they're too old. And please do the world a favor and take the phrase "I'm too old" out of your vocabulary and make sure you point it out when anybody else says it, because you are never too old to pursue your dreams, to have optimal health, to do the things that you want to do and love to do every stage of life. So take that first step. And that is the way of the Femininja.